somewhere out there right now, there could have been another human species reading this instead of you. Not a chimpanzee, not some distant ape cousin, another species of human, walking upright, making tools, raising children, just as human as you are, in almost every way that matters. They're not here. You are. And for most of history, that outcome was never guaranteed. Here's the part nobody tells you in school. Human was never a solo act. For hundreds of thousands of years, at least 8 different human species shared this planet at the same time, sometimes in the exact same valleys, drinking from the exact same rivers. Then, one after another, they vanished. Every branch except yours. So what actually happened to them? And why did you make it out alive? Let's start with the one you've heard of, Neanderthals. Thick-boned, barrel-chested, built like they were designed for an ice age, because they were. Bigger brains than you, by volume. They controlled fire, made tools, buried their dead with what looks suspiciously like ritual. For decades, scientists assumed the simple version. Smarter humans showed up. Neanderthals lost. Game over. Then, in 2010, a geneticist named Svante Paabo did something that blew that story apart. He sequenced an entire Neanderthal genome, work that later won him a Nobel Prize, and found their DNA sitting quietly inside living humans today. If your ancestry traces outside Africa, somewhere between 1 and 2% of your genome is Neanderthal. Right now, in your body, as you watch this. They didn't just lose, they got absorbed, bred into the population that replaced them until the label Neanderthal disappeared, even while their actual biology kept walking around inside us. Next, a species we didn't even know existed until 2010, identified from a single finger bone and one tooth, found in a freezing Siberian cave. Scientists called them the Denisovans. We still don't know what most of them looked like, but people living today, in parts of Asia and the Pacific Islands, carry Denisovan genes tied to surviving high altitude, fighting off disease, storing fat efficiently. An entire species, reduced to a knuckle and a molar, and a genetic fingerprint still working inside strangers who've never heard their name. Then there's Homo erectus, the marathon runner of human evolution. Nearly 2 million years on this planet. That's roughly 20 times longer than your entire species has existed so far. They tamed fire. They built rafts and crossed open ocean on purpose, with nothing but instinct and nerve. Researcher Yusuke Kaifu has studied their final populations on the island of Java, and the picture that's emerging isn't a dramatic collapse. It's a slow fade, shrinking habitats, shifting climate, no single villain, just decline, generation after generation, until one day there simply weren't any left to count. And here's the one that should genuinely unsettle you. In 2003, researchers on the tiny Indonesian island of Flores uncovered bones from a human standing barely 3.5 feet tall, Homo floresiensis. The internet nicknamed them hobbits almost instantly. Isolated on their island for so long, their small size may have been evolution's answer to limited food and space. They were still alive as recently as 50,000 years ago, which means it's entirely possible your direct ancestors met them, looked them in the eye, shared a fire, or a fight, or a trade, an entirely separate human species, and we may have simply outlasted them. So why you? Why not them? Some scientists point to flexibility. Modern humans didn't specialize in one climate, one diet, one set of tools. We adapted to nearly everywhere, fast. Others point to sheer numbers and connection. Bigger, more networked groups share knowledge quicker and survive a bad decade more easily than a tiny, isolated population ever could. And researchers like paleoanthropologist Chris Stringer argue it wasn't one silver bullet at all. It was luck stacking on luck, small advantages piling up in our favor at exactly the moments that mattered most. Sit with that for a second. You are not evolution's finish line. You're not the guaranteed outcome of some grand upward march. You are simply the branch that happened to survive the dice roll, while at least 8 of your closest relatives did not. Their fires went out, one at a time, across 100,000 years. And somehow, against those exact same odds, yours never did. You're not alone in your DNA. You're the last voice left in a conversation that used to include several others, and you never even got to hear what they had to say.